Understandest thou what thou readest in the King James Version? A friend of the channel has listened carefully through all of my videos and formed an official list of my King James false friends, something I've been too busy to do. I'm honored. His name is Nathan Stockwell. I thank him. He's got personal reasons to care about the effects of King James onlyism. With his help, I've come to realize that my refusal thus far to make and keep an official list of King James false friends has caused me to make a mistake or two. And one of them is that I put the false friend study on my list twice. It got 2 official numbers on my list of 50 false friends, numbers 33 and 46. I also mentioned a false friend in another video that actually didn't get an official number. So with Nathan's help, I've decided to make that false friend number 33. And that false friend came in this paragraph. We glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation worketh patience, and patience experience, and experience hope, and hope maketh not ashamed, because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost, which is given unto us. That's from Romans 5. Which word do you think is a false friend? I've already talked about ghost in another false friends video, an official one. It's not that one. And if you look over the rest of the words available here, I think you'll agree that every single one of them is still used today. I don't know that there's anything here in this context that might tip you off as to what the false friend is, so I'll end your agony and tell you. It's the word experience. I was alerted to this false friend by Albert Hemd, actually, a very strongly King James only writer who was attempting to discredit the New King James Version in 2 very lengthy articles for the Trinitarian Bible Society. One of his complaints about the New King James is that it replaced the word experience here in the King James with the word character. Hemd actually argued that this was a doctrinally motivated change. He thought that the New King James translators were trying to undermine the Bible's call to people to have actual spiritual experience. This sounded wrong to me. And sounding wrong to me is step 1 in my false friends process, so I moved to step 2. I used my tools to look up the Greek word that was translated experience in the King James, and it means the experience of going through a test with special reference to the result, standing a test, character. That's from BDAG, as usual on this channel, Bauer, Dunker, Arndt, and Gingrich. This is an initial support for the New King James rendering, character, one that practically all major modern evangelical English Bible translations use as well. But that word experience from the King James actually does show up in the BDAG definition, so what's going on? Well, in modern English, experience means practical contact with and observation of facts or events. That's the New Oxford American Dictionary, which gives these sample sentences that you'll recognize. He had already learned his lesson by painful experience, and he spoke from experience. That's just what Albert Hemd thought the word meant in the King James. But is it? No. Let's move now to the Oxford English Dictionary. Check out this sense, a sense that used to be present in English, but no longer is. Proof obtained by putting something to the test, practical demonstration, obsolete. This is exactly what the Greek word means in Romans in that passage. When you obtain proof by putting something to the test, you have proven character. So the King James and modern versions are not disagreeing. They mean the same thing. They just mean it in 2 different Englishes. As Doug Moo says in his excellent Romans commentary, the New Testament writers like to give lists in which suffering inaugurates a chain of linked virtues. Listen to them again in Romans 5. We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. Suffering can increase your endurance. Suffer a few times and endure it, and if you pass the tests, you have proven character. And character for a Christian is something that can make you give glory to God for the real and positive changes that He has produced in your life. And that can give you hope, a hope that won't let you down, because you have evidence that you really are the object of God's love through His indwelling Spirit changing you. I don't honestly think that the misunderstanding now caused by the King James, which is not the King James's fault, but the fault of language change, I don't actually think that that misunderstanding is a huge deal. The overall list still works, but it's a bit of static on the radio that makes you not quite get a note of meaning that God intended. It's a bit of unnecessary traffic on the highway when, if you'd only remembered that it was after 8 p.m., you could have used the HOV lane. It's like chewing bit of honey that's been frozen instead of warmed. You'll eventually get the juice, but you might hurt your teeth in the process. I'll tell you what this isn't. It's not a mistake in the modern versions, or even a change from what the King James said. It's the modern version speaking modern English while the King James is still speaking Elizabethan English. The word experience occurs just 2 other times in the King James Version, and in those places it means what we still mean by the term. It's not a false friend in those places. Here's one example. And Laban said unto him, that's Jacob, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. That is obviously the same sense of experience that we use in our version of English. So it's not as simple as saying, just remember that experience in the King James Version doesn't mean what it means in modern English. No, it's just remember that experience in the King James Version means the same thing that it means in modern English twice, but once it means something no one uses it to mean anymore. My forthcoming book, KJV Words You Don't Know, will have even more King James false friends. You will no doubt be shocked and amazed. And now, hopefully, thou understandest what thou readest in the King James Version a little better.